Hey, my name is Hannah. Welcome back to my channel, Savage Reads. As you can tell, I'm feeling a little casual. I got home from church and now I'm in my Star Wars pajamas. So it's a bit of a casual video today, and I have a few books that I'm excited to talk about. And as always, let's start with an embroidery update. So I finished the Star Wars embroidery. It is what it is. It's fine. I'm gonna put it up on my daughter's wall and she is very excited about it. So may the force be with you. We've got a couple droids. I decided against the stars that I thought about stitching on there because I am not confident in my ability to make them look like stars and not like dandruff. So that one's done. Now I'm taking a bit of a breather on complicated embroideries and just doing something light and fun, and I am filling in this with a bunch of flowers, and this is fun. I will give it to my sister-in-law and hopefully she likes it. And this is all before the next more complicated one that I am going to be doing, which is a picture of a dog, which might be complicated, but I'm going to give it a try. So that is where I am with embroidery, but let's jump into the books that I have read this last week. So once again, I had a very nonfiction filled week. So 3 out of these 4 reads were nonfiction. And the first one that I finished this week was Master, Slave, Husband, Wife, An Epic Journey from Slavery to Freedom. Now this book and the next one were both recommendations from Caitlin at Bandy's Books. So make sure to check out her channel. I will link it down below. But I have heard quite a few other people talk about this book and I was really excited. This book is following the true story of Ellen and William Craft, who escaped from slavery by having Ellen dress up as a white slave owner and her husband dress up as her slave. And they escaped slavery, went on the train, made it north, eventually ended up in Canada and England, and this is focusing on their escape and their lives and kind of gives us the full picture of what happens after, and it is really cool. It is a really cool story to read. The pictures in it are so fun because there are actual photographs that you can see the people and the places that are talked about in the book. It is a very fun book. I mean, as fun as books about slavery can be, but you get that daring escape, but you also get a lot of context. Now, I do think the context was good in a lot of places because the author spends a lot of time building up a picture of what the South looked like during slavery times and what some of the contemporaries of Ellen and William Craft would have been like and the people that they had come into contact with. The author did a lot of that. Now, from an informative perspective, I thought that was really great. I think my only complaint with this book is that because it had so much background, it almost started to feel like it was trying to pad out the story and it bogged down the narrative a little bit. And so when you're trying to see, okay, what happens next? And you go off into, well, and this person who lived at the same time and in this city had this and this and this happen, it just made it feel a little dull and a little long at certain points. But I do appreciate what the author was trying to do. And this story, while important, also had just that epic journey. You could really see the commitment that these two people had to each other and to the abolition of slavery and the work that they did doing these public speeches. I really appreciate that this book made sure to give Ellen a voice when at this time, women weren't always given the platform to share their stories. This book made sure to focus on Ellen's perspective as well as William's. And so I did appreciate that. I thought this was a really good one, just sometimes got bogged down with too many details that it pulled away from the narrative. But overall, this was an excellent nonfiction read. This next book is Brave the Wild River, the untold story of 2 women who mapped the botany of the Grand Canyon. This is following 2 women in 1938 who studied botany and found some boatmen who would take them down the Colorado River through the Grand Canyon And they were the first women that had made this journey, as well as the first people to study the plants through this region. Now, I have a lot of good feelings about the Grand Canyon. I have hiked down it a few times, 3 times, to the bottom of the Grand Canyon, and my parents many more times than that, and they have actually rafted down the Colorado. And so I have a lot of feelings about the beauty of the nature there. It was very interesting to see how the river and why the river had changed since the 1930s, and to see their journey was just really interesting. I had a great time with this book. It made me reminisce on my own experiences in the Grand Canyon. I was just in awe at their work ethic and the commitment to science that these women had, and I just really liked it. I highly recommend it, especially if you like the Grand Canyon. This is a book, Dad, Mom, I think you would really like it. I know that you have such fond memories and connection with this area, and to learn a little bit about these places, it was fun that I could say, oh, I've been there, I know where that is, and I think you would really like it. This next nonfiction book was a recommendation from Kim at Middle of the Book March, and this is The Year of Magical Thinking by Joan Didion. This book is following this author's experience after her husband dies suddenly and her daughter is having health crisis after health crisis, and it is this look at grief and this magical thinking that she goes through, this time period where she just thinks if she just did something a little bit different, maybe her husband would walk back through that door. Maybe it would make her daughter pull through. And I think this book would connect with certain people a lot. For me, I don't know if I took anything from it that was that profound. There was nothing in it that made me think, wow, that changes how I look at grief. But it was a very personal thing. I could tell that the author got a lot out of writing this. But for me getting a lot out of reading it, I don't know. I think if you are a person who is feeling lost in the grieving process and you want to feel like you are not alone, this book could be really helpful for you. But I think if you are not in the middle of that kind of process, or you have a very strong sense of how you are getting through your grief, I don't know if you're going to really find a ton from this book, but the writing was really beautiful and her experiences are very valid. So overall, it was a good book, but I probably will forget about it pretty quickly. Now, Scott at Gunpowder Fiction and Plot recommended the book Sweet Bean Paste by Durian Tsukegawa. And this book was translated from the original Japanese, and it is following a man who is working at a small confectionery shop that makes dorayaki. It's a type of pancake filled with sweet bean paste. And he feels like his life is stuck and that what he is doing doesn't mean anything. And why is he continuing on? His life is already over and it never really began. He feels very hopeless. And we have this old woman who shows up one day and says, I want to work here. He says, you can't work here. You're old. Your hands are disfigured. Something is going on. And she says, okay, well, try the sweet bean paste that I make. And he tries it and it's so good. So she starts working making the sweet bean paste, and they have this friendship and they make friends with one of the regulars who comes into the store to get the pancake filled with the bean paste. And it is a story about friendship. It talks a little bit about some history in Japan and some really difficult things that the characters have gone through, but it had a very nice sweetness in it. The food writing was nice. I have never really wanted to eat sweet bean paste. I've seen it in things, but I don't think I've ever actually tried it. And I've never thought, wow, that's on my list of things I want to try. And after reading this book, I think, okay, yeah, I get it. I really need to try some sweet bean paste. That sounds like it could be really good. So I appreciate it for that. I really liked some of the messages that this book had. And I think it's something that I struggle with, and I know lots of people struggle with, and it's that feeling that if I'm not being productive, if I'm not doing more and being more, then my life doesn't have meaning. And I think that this book really was showing that even if all that you are able to do in life is see things and feel things and be there, that is worth it. You are still worth it. And I think that it was a really nice message to come away with, that your productivity does not determine your worth as a person. I liked this. I thought it was sweet. I didn't cry or connect super deeply emotionally, but I liked it enough that I went away thinking, oh, I'm so glad I read it. And after reading way too many nonfiction books in a row, I needed something a little bit light and a little bit sweet, and this was lovely. So I do recommend this one, especially if you are tired of reading things that are so dark. Yes, some difficult things happen in this, but it felt very wholesome and life-affirming, which is always a nice change of pace. And that is what I have read the last week or so. If you have any thoughts on these books, let me know in the comments down below, and I will see you all on the next one.